Alright, Daima episode 3 and the lore is getting deep. Goku, Shin, and Glorio are cruising through space, and while doing so they're going on about how fast and stellar this ship is. But I'm like, how much quicker could it have been if instant transmission was an option? Instead, they're cramped in their magic school bus and on their way to a warp. That of course being the not goldfish portal between the demon world and our world. For all intents and purposes, it's kinda like King Yima, but way more inconsistent. Daima has the demon world as its own universe, but OG Dragon Ball, the portal was connected to Universe 7. It seems like this retcon, if you want to call it that, is to make it less accessible to whatever demons or whoever was coming in and out. So they're headed to planet Babi because that's the closest bet to get to a warp. Supreme Kai's pressing Glorio, who ends up confessing he was commissioned by the Demon King of the Third World, Kadan. It was interesting to me how they try and play up Goma as some threat, even though he does seem about as formidable as Babi, and that is a low bar. There was such a lack of tension in this discussion that I agree with the masses that Goma can't be the final boss. So as they're discussing Dende, I notice a look of panic on Kaioshin's face. Either as a mistrust for Glorio or underestimation of Goma, but I'm leaning towards the former. In order to update Kibito, Supreme Kai requests a stop along the way. I imagine he's trying to airdrop Kibito their location in case things go awry. What's also kind of wild to me is that there's several of these things. All of them seem to have that no-nonsense attitude too. It seems like Goku's casual disposition does not charm these guys the way it did Xeno. Well, I said no nonsense, but Supreme Kai prefers sensitive. Although Goku has clearly lost his filter as a kid, I imagine adult him would pretty much behave the same way. They attempt to pass the gate, but before that they have to suffer an ear inspection. And boy, does Supreme Kai have some Deus Ex Machina power. Changing biology type stuff. I mean, I know they can rejuvenate, but this is new, at least to me. Shin also makes notice that requiring a code is new too. I'd have to imagine it's them tightening the bolts from whatever figures were going back and forth. So I'm so curious as to who's been coming in and out besides Goma. Of course, I feel like it has to be other demons, but where did they go? Namek? Unfortunately, Supreme Kai runs out of time to share the coat with Kibito, meaning the others will have to find another way in. If they can't use the warp, maybe another one of the canon entrances like a time labyrinth could come up. Just like Goku's lunch. They make it into this sort of limbo to the three realms, with the first hatch being the most exclusive. It seems like the first demon realm is where the elites are, explaining the elite guards protecting the Dragon Balls. I'm sure they've also had a hand in setting up these transportation regulations. Glorio leads them to the third hatch, and Kai's concern had me worried that they were maybe being misled. Despite that, they follow his lead anyways, and out of, yeah. So, finally they arrive, and it's a massive, expansive landscape. The totally wide open space without civilian casualties, perfect place for Goku to go all out. His childlike wonder has always been a constant, but it's really palpable in mini form. Even during the history lesson on the Demon World Veil, which I'm sure will be pierced and lifted at some point. Demon Realm, free range to Universe 7 is where I feel like Goma's taking us. But when and will we discover who placed these barriers? Either first world demons or the Kais, in my opinion. Honestly, this whole system is crazy elaborate. So, it seems like Glorio can pass freely through as he's a worker in the first Demon World, but his occupation's a secret. It's gotta be like, hit, right? He's out murking people for sure. If that is his job title, then I truly am surprised he couldn't just deal with Goma himself. Passing by the Dabura statue and his peace sign, I never realized he was such a casual. I had thought it myself, but even Goku points out that our world and this really aren't that different. Maybe they were connected at some point Pangea style and ended up divided. I feel like the subtle differences between the third Demon World and ours only allow them to get more creative per Demon World as we progress. Some things to note about this place is that it literally stinks. Maybe Neva's been around. This atmosphere makes movements a lot more sluggish, so it should definitely boost Goku's strength as his body adjusts. It's sort of like extra gravity, but instead of gravity, it's gas. In this place, I can't help but wonder how Supreme Kai feels now that he's getting connected to his roots, visiting for the first time. As well, since Glenn's primarily resided in the second realm, what's the distinction that separates them? Is it intelligence, level of power, rank? Who has the pointiest ears? It also seems like in the many paths and crevices, there's even something like a snake way. Although this is arguably worse than falling into hell, as it seems like the Sea of Darkness would probably vaporize your body. Though that's not the only threat they have, but I am using that term lightly. The jazzy music and 20 miles per hour arrows don't bring too much fear. But man, just to see Glorio bob and weave through the assault, keeping it simple with a pistol, I dig that simplicity. Really adds to that classic choreography feel before things got so flashy. For these grunts, my question is, was this a setup to make Glorio look heroic and earn their trust? Or was it just really a chance encounter? Until we know, we're keeping the trust and following Glorio to a hell hotel. Daima also oozes Toriyama creativity, from the fun creature designs to the interesting landscapes. Fascinating things like floating volcanoes with heat that create its own gravitational center. Maybe that's how it works. It just sounded smart and clever, much like this fart joke. Which, I mean, actually turned out to be foreshadowing, so. The town they're staying in has a dope landscape, major city vibe like New York, maybe the Bronx. I also wouldn't have thought of these demons as being capable of creating such a sophisticated society, economy, everything. I would have expected lawlessness, but it genuinely seemed organized.
Are you?
Also, like New York, there's no shortage of people ready to rip you off. Glorio does some haggling though, and I'll say even he seems taken aback by the situation. If he hadn't planned for this, maybe they can trust this hustler after all. Eventually, they make their way into a bar that I guess does not ID in this world for some grub. Gotta wonder how many times Goku's appetite has been used to move the plot forward. Also wonder if he would lose that appetite if he knew what this meat was. Maybe it's made with horse radits. Looks like these demons can get pretty territorial with outsiders, which they can judge by the ears, meaning Vegeta and co are bound to run into some trouble as well. For now, trouble's found these guys. This fight scene, not to glaze it too much, but was great. How nonchalant the guys were while decking these dudes in the schnoz. The lack of any Kai Blast or power-ups, leaving the emphasis on the combat and the heavy impacts. Like, I just really adore how playful yet deadly Goku is. His layers have all been balanced so well so far. Although the atmosphere is light, there's something thrilling about seeing Goku really go at it for the first time in years. Plus, with the upgrades in animation, I think they're really able to utilize his small proportions better than imaginable in the past. But even this small body needs a lot of fuel. After some rest, Gloria retrieves them, but the high anticipation of meeting his boss has gotta last a little longer. I wouldn't say as much happened this episode story-wise as the prior two, however the world building's expanding like this pit. Having Glorio be our tour guide gave me enough to now make a conclusion about him. From his real-time reaction to the events around him, I don't think anything, at least yet, has been staged. He is clearly capable of killing though, and I still do think that's his career trajectory. My question is more so on Kaden. If Goma is evil and the king wants Goma dead, is it for the greater good or to take his place? Considering the low-key sinister feeling I do get from Glorio, I'm leaning towards the latter here. So, as the mysteries continue, I give episode 3 another 8 out of 10.